Jai Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Srimad Devamrita Swami Devamrita Swami Astatarasam Srimad Siddhanta Sasida Goya Gaur Premanandi. Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 9. Dhruva Maharaj returns home. Text 39 through 41. Suniti Surachishchasya Hishya Rukma Bhushate Ahukya Shivakam Sadham Uttamena Vijagmatu Suniti Surachishchasya Hisya Rukma Bhushate Ahuya Shivakam Sadham Uttamena Vijagmatu Suniti Suruchishtasya Hisya Rukma Bhushate Ahuya Shivakam Sadham Uttamena Vijagmatu Being decorated with golden ornaments. Getting on. Shivakam, a palanquin. Sadham, number 2, all proceeded along. Begin with text 38, translation, referring to King Uttanapa. Although he could not believe the words of the messenger, he had full faith in the word of the great sage Narada. Thus he was greatly overwhelmed by the news, and he immediately offered the messenger a highly valuable necklace in great satisfaction. Then King Uttanapa, being very eager to see the face of his lost son, mounted a chariot drawn by excellent horses and bedecked with golden filigree, taking with him many learned brahmanas, all the elderly personalities of his family, his officers, his ministers, and his immediate friends. He immediately left the city. As he proceeded in this parade, there were auspicious sounds of conch shells, kettle drums, flutes, and the chanting of Vedic mantras to indicate all good fortune. Both the queens of King Uttanapa, namely Suniti and Suruchi, along with his other son, Uttam, appeared in the procession. The queens were seated on a palanquin. Purport. After the departure of Dhruva Maharaj from the palace, the king was very afflicted, but by the kind words of Saint Narada, he was partially satisfied. He could understand the great fortune of his wife, Suniti, and the great misfortune of Queen Suruchi, for these facts were certainly open in the palace. But still, when the news reached the palace that Dhruva Maharaj is returning, his mother, Suniti, out of her great compassion and due to being the mother of a great Vaishnava, did not hesitate to take the other wife, Suruchi, and her son, Uttama, on the same palanquin. That was the greatness of Queen Suniti, the mother of the great Vaishnava, Dhruva Maharaj. Om Ganat Chivanandasa, Gananjana Shalakaya, Chakshu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Maharaj Uttanapa couldn't believe the words of the messenger. Such unbelievable, incredible news that his lost son was returning from the forest. Normally, you don't expect a 5-year-old boy to return from months in the forest alive. So the news was completely contrary to material sense calculation. What caused Maharaj Uttanapa to think differently about the news was not the material information itself, but the fact that Narada Muni had predicted his son would return. So you see Maharaj Uttanapa balancing the material and the spiritual. On the one hand, materially he wouldn't accept that his son, his lost little boy, could return from months in the fierce forest alive. On the other hand, although the news was contrary to any material expectation or analysis, Narada Muni had given a prediction. So the king relied upon the purport given by Narada Muni. This is, again, very important. He's dealing with material information and unauthorized spiritual knowledge. Today is supposed to be the information age, and you see that people are inundated by information at every moment of the day. In spite of all this information that's circulating, flooding, no one has real knowledge. This is the problem. It's very important to learn how to discriminate between the different types of information. You're getting to see Maharaj Tanapat in action, doing that. What had Narada Muni told him? You see, Narada Muni always has a tendency to show up at the right time in the right place. That is his empowerment. He showed up to see Dhruva Maharaj in the forest when Dhruva was so bent on revenge. And after he gave instruction to Dhruva Maharaj, by first testing him, what are you doing in the forest? You're a little boy. This is no place for someone like you. You should go home. Spiritual realization? That can come later. Wait till you grow up. He was testing Dhruva Maharaj's determination and sincerity. After he saw that Dhruva passed the test, and he gave Dhruva Maharaj instruction how to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he then went to talk to Dhruva's father, Maharaj Tanapat. Do you remember the state that Maharaj Tanapat was in? You can just imagine. You don't have to imagine. You can read in the Bhagavatam, the full impact. Destroyed by lamentation, although such a powerful king, a king who had power far beyond what any political leader has today. Yet he was devastated by lamentation. What have I done? What have I done? Just look at my horrible condition. I was so attached to my favorite wife, and just to please her, I destroyed my son. Narada Muni asked him, why are you so withered up? Of course, Narada Muni knew. Still, Narada Muni proceeds, actually according to Varnashram Dharma. He asked Maharaj Tanapat, is everything all right in your state? Is the Dharma, Artha, and Kama going on okay? Prabhupada points out that Narada Muni didn't ask you about moksha, because you don't ask things about moksha. He just asked them, are the religious rituals going on okay, so that there's economic development? And with the economic development, is the sense gratification going on okay? We are very complimentary when we call people materialists these days, because actually a materialist is one who understands Dharma, Artha, and Kama. Religious rituals for the sake of economic development, and the economic development for the sake of sense gratification. A materialist, in the proper sense, in the Vedic sense, is one who's absorbed in these three things. What you have today, of course, is simply economic development leading to sense gratification. No understanding that even material prosperity depends on Dharma. Because there's no such understanding of how Dharma leads to Artha, therefore you have all these booms and busts going on continuously. Century after century, human beings are scratching their heads. How can we make an economy that is constantly growing? They're so deluded, they can't even understand the obvious, that the earth has a certain amount of resources. Especially since there's no Dharma, nature is not going to look kindly upon human civilization. So with a certain amount of resources, which we know, due to the influence of the age of Kali, are reducing anyway, then you have the ever-increasing material desires of the human population. The real problem is not the increase of the population. The real problem is the increase of material desires. And economic development today is based on constantly inflaming material desires. Narada Muni approached Maharaja Tanapa with the basic Vedic material platform. All right, you're a king. Is your state prosperous? That means, is the Dharma, Artha, and Kama going on okay? Maharaja Tanapa presented his woeful situation. I just made the greatest mistake in my life. I have caused such havoc. My boy, I've heard he's gone to the forest. Who can emerge? What 5-year-old boy can emerge from living in the forest alive? Narada Muni told him, don't worry. Your son will achieve such spiritual stature that he'll be eternally famous, and he'll also increase your fame. He will come back. Obviously, this was Maharaja Tanapa's only consolation. And Narada Muni had said Dhruva would return. Now, a messenger has told him, indeed, Dhruva is approaching the city. He's coming back. Still, the material information was too daunting. Try to think about this. There's sometimes a struggle in our spiritual development between material information and spiritual information. At that point, we have to admit our helplessness. Indeed, we need to realize the full and true import of Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Definitely, we are born in the darkness of ignorance. Even if highly materially educated, we follow in the footsteps of Srimad Goswami, who approached Lord Chaitanya, demonstrating how to properly approach spiritual knowledge. People say, I'm such a great scholar. How can that be? The truth is, I'm such a fool, I believe them when they say I'm a great scholar. But let's look at the facts. Number one, I believe them when they say I'm a great scholar. That means I'm a fool. And number two, I don't know who I am. I don't know why I'm suffering. I don't know how to benefit myself properly. These are the facts. We have to decide what information is most important for us in this life and focus our life on that. A big problem that people have today is the inability to focus. The flood of sense gratification has dissipated everyone's intelligence to such an extent that no one can focus on what is the ultimate goal of life. This is why we factually say that the present civilization is demoniac. It totally destroys the ability to concentrate on the ultimate goal of life. Dissipates the intelligence. Perhaps there's an increase in material comfort, at least temporarily. There's some increase in material convenience, at least temporarily. But we don't look at those things. We don't look at the glitter. We look at the essence. The essence of the situation is that people cannot focus on what is the ultimate goal of life. Therefore, it's demoniac. We're not fanatical when we say that. We understand what is the purpose of the human form of life. If that purpose is made very difficult, if that purpose is shredded, then it's a demoniac civilization. If you don't know what is the goal of life, then how can you evaluate civilization? Maharaj Uttanapad was shrewd, of course. In the foreground was the information from the messenger, unbelievable as it was. In the background was his attachment to the words of Narada Muni. Guru Mukha Padmavakya Chitte Kodayai Anakuyomanaya. We sing every morning. My only desire is to hear the words emanating from your lotus mouth. I don't have any attachment other than that. When there's a clash between material information and Shastra, and we cannot immediately resolve the clash, the proper attitude of a disciple is, let me withhold judgment and wait for further realization. Maharaj Uttanapad made a quick decision. The news is incredible, but Narada Muni has told me my son will come back. All right, I'll give the messenger a highly valuable necklace. In English, there's often the expression, don't shoot the messenger. Someone brings you bad news or news you don't like, and you get angry at the messenger who's just conveying the message. There's no injunction, in the English language anyway, for rewarding a messenger who brings you news you like. Actually, our whole spiritual system is based on gratitude for those who bring the message of Krishna. Therefore, we celebrate Vyasa Puja, honoring someone who presents the message of Vyasadeva. The gratitude shown toward the messenger of Krishna allows us to assimilate the transcendental information, and gradually all contradictions between the material perception and the spiritual reality become resolved. Bhakti is at least a lifetime career. It's actually our eternal occupation, but it's at least our lifetime pursuit. What is the harm in spending a whole life, which is very short in the age of Kali, trying to understand the science of Krishna? People spend their whole life trying to understand so many mundane things. Why then is it to understand Krishna Tattva just religious sentiment, something done overnight or over a few years? The depths of bhakti, devotional service to the Supreme Lord, are unlimited. Year after year in a devotee's life, he or she realizes, the more I know, the less I realize I know. The more service I do, I realize I'm actually doing very little service. This is the nature of the spiritual reality. And naturally, for a genuine disciple, the gratitude increases year by year for the spiritual preceptors who have lifted even a materially competent or materially expert devotee, lifted that devotee from the deepest muck of ignorance. That was Sanatana Goswami's presentation to Lord Chaitanya. I don't believe what the people said. I used to, and that's proof of that I'm a fool. You please enlighten me. Maharaj Uttanapad offered the messenger a highly valuable necklace in great satisfaction. But once again, please note his treatment of the messenger, bringing this information was based on his trust of Narayana. Next we hear how Uttanapad, being very eager to see the face of his lost son, mounted his chariot, and a huge procession followed. That is the way of auspiciousness, a huge procession. Accompanying the procession are the sounds, conch shells, kettle drums, flutes, and the chanting of Vedic mantras. This is the first-class way of doing things. Within that procession, we are given the focus of what's happening with Maharaj Uttanapad's queens, Suniti and Suruchi. What's happening with his other son, Uttama. Because, remember, Dhruva's whole purpose in going to the forest was to get prestige and revenge because of a problem within the intimate family circle. Therefore, the Bhagavatam is now going to zoom in on that intimate family circle, which was the source of all the problems. In other words, how are these things going to be resolved? Dhruva's coming back from the forest. We know how he left, what was happening in the inner chambers of the palace. Naturally, we want to know how those emotional dynamics are going to play out upon his return. Now, in the purport, we find out that Suniti was so not envious and so humble that even though her co-wife had put her through hell and driven her son away, Suniti seated the co-wife, Suruchi, on the same palanquin as her, along with the son of Suruchi, Uttama. We are given quite a few verses for meditating on this mentality of non-enviousness and equilibrium. Suridam Sarvadeva, equal to all living entities, no matter the honor and dishonor, the happiness and distress. The greatness of Dhruva Maharaj's mother is being glorified. This focus we're getting now is very important because of the power of revenge and anger that started the whole history of Dhruva Maharaj. Narada Muni had commented when he met Dhruva in the forest, "You're just a 5-year-old boy. Why are you so upset about being insulted?" So Narada Muni had noted the intensity of this anger and desire for revenge. Remember when Suruchi insulted Dhruva to the max, we would say these days. You're trying to climb on your father's lap. Well, let me tell you something. You're born from the wrong mother. Here's what you can do, and here's the only way to remedy this situation. Perform austerities for hundreds of births, then you may get a chance to be born from my womb. Dhruva then, totally shredded, ran to his mother, crying. The mother, Suniti, had already heard the news of this Maha insult. Life in the palace. She told Dhruva, "You're coming to me to solve this problem. You're coming to me for comfort and solace. What can I do? I'm helpless. I'm the out-of-favor wife." Your father, in other words, due to current predilections for the mind and body, prefers the other wife to such an extent that he doesn't even pay me the slightest attention. This is the reality. This reality is something that the father, Maharaj Uttanapad, would lament totally later. But in the way illusion works, is at first it looks pretty good. That's why it's called Maya. It looks good at first, it looks promising. Yes, this could do it. This could hit the spot. This could balance. This could balance my life. Add a little sense gratification alone, the bhakti, and makes the system flow better. We've all heard of the great problems in life caused, yes? Is it so? By too much Krishna? You've seen that verse in Bhagavatam about problems caused by too much Krishna. So that is the work of the illusory energy, to make it seem that realistically we need to add some sense gratification in life, and then everything will be better. And the proposition always looks very attractive, soothing, fulfilling. The magic of the illusory energy is such that it makes you see that just a few moments of absorption in Maya will be worth the struggle. Any struggle before or any struggle after. Just a few golden moments. As they say, just a few moments in the sun. That makes the struggle worth it. This is the potency of the illusory energy. It's actually a magical, mystical presentation. It can't be figured out by material intelligence. You can't see through it. The fog is so thick and the fog looks so good. That's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Daidiyesha Gunamai Momaya Dharagya. Krishna tells you flat out, in no uncertain terms, this material energy of mine is impossible to overcome. You may be the greatest scholar, the greatest scientist, the shrewdest politician. You can't see through this illusory energy unless you do things my way. That means surrender to me. Surrendering to Krishna simply means doing things Krishna's way. We make such a big deal about it in our minds. Surrender means giving up something that's so valuable I'll practically disappear. But actually, surrender simply means doing things Krishna's way. When you think about it, that's not so unreasonable at all. Even in material life, you're busy doing things someone else's way. So then you start to evaluate. All my life I'm doing things the way of my family, the way of my employer, the way of peer pressure, the way of fashion. So what's the big deal about just switching and doing things Krishna's way? The threatening thing that apparently is there in botany is our shutting down the factory of mental concoction. Because material absorption is based simply on mental concoction. So we get a little jittery when we think about shutting down that whole factory of mental concoction, which produces things known, items known as material happiness and material distress. Even when you have material distress, under the influence of illusory energy, you can feel that it's my distress. I possess something. Let me become absorbed in material lamentation. At least it's something to be absorbed in. The living entity can't live without absorption. So forgetting absorption in devotional service, you have the only other option to float and sink in an ocean of material happiness and distress. 1 minute rejoicing, and then next minute lamenting. That's all there is. Therefore, even material lamentation seems to provide an opportunity for absorption. To just wallow in self-pity, wallow in lamentation, it allows you to feel that you have a purpose in life. It allows you to feel that you have an identity. So when we hear Krishna say, surrender to me, the threat that we feel is shutting down that factory of mental fabrication. We think that perhaps our personality will disappear when that factory is shut down. What Krishna is offering is, you do things my way. See the difference. So there's no need for us to feel intimidated when we hear surrender to Krishna. We simply remember it means doing things Krishna's way. And then we understand Krishna is superior, Krishna's way is superior. The revenge that Dhruva Maharaj wanted was both negative and positive. He wanted his family members to be put in their place for having insulted him. And positively, he wanted a greater kingdom than anyone ever had, even his great-grandfather, Lord Brahma. So, you have at the beginning such anger and revenge. Now everybody noted this. And now, as Dhruva emerges from the forest, you're seeing the greatest equanimity, the greatest non-enviousness. Dhruva's mother has not the slightest ill will towards her co-wife. She has not the slightest ill will towards the son of her co-wife. This is shocking amidst such havoc at a 5-year-old boy left home for the forest. Naturally, Maharaj Uttanapad we can't describe his happiness in seeing his son. But we should not overlook an important fact in terms of Maharaj Uttanapad's greeting of Dhruva, embracing him, smelling his head with affection. The fact is, Dhruva is a completely different person from the little boy who left for the forest. Dhruva has realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the person who went into the forest was not the same as the person who came out of the forest. So the family will have to adjust to that reality. The nature of the bhakti process is the highest form of personal transformation. As the grip of the illusory energy begins to slacken, although a devotee never thinks, now I am completely safe from my... But as the grip of the illusory energy slackens, you are able to see more clearly. And what do you see? You see opportunities for service to Krishna everywhere. And then the lamentation is no more for your material unfulfilled desires. The lamentation is now, how do I get enough time? How do I get enough energy? How do I get enough of my life to do all the service that's available for Krishna's pleasure? We should not take this vision for granted. This is a blessing from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You can actually see service opportunities everywhere. Just like a thief sees opportunities for stealing everywhere, or a lusty person sees opportunities for lust everywhere. The devotee becomes empowered with an increasing ability to see opportunities for serving Krishna. That is no humdrum thing. That is the mercy of the Lord. With Dhruva's new vision, he had lamentation. What was I doing worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the most foolish things? That lamentation of Dhruva is classic. And Srila Prabhupada instructs us. We should be careful about worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead for material things. We don't want to end up lamenting like Dhruva Maharaj. Now you might say, well, if I have to lament like Dhruva Maharaj, and get what Dhruva Maharaj got, that's a pretty good deal. You ever think about it? I mean, what's so bad about his lamentation? Look what he got. This is our way of thinking, derived from current so-called civilization. Look at what he got. Look at the goods. Look at the stuff. Forget the lamentation. He got stuff. True. The Lord was thinking, Dhruva is such a determined devotee. Never mind his naivete in asking for material things. What kind of kingdom should I give him? Why should I give him some kind of kingdom in the material world that's destroyed so easily? I'll give him an eternal abode. So yes, Dhruva got things. The mystery of bhakti is that attitude is most important. Attitude is real wealth. And Dhruva knew that, and that's why he was lamenting, even though he got so many things. He got the biggest, best residence. He was lamenting about his attitude, his emotional state in approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His bhava was not correct in the beginning. And that's what Dhruva held to be the most valuable and crucial item, his emotional attitude. I approached the Lord in the wrong way. This takes some time for us to consider. I remember first reading this part of the Bhagavatam, and naturally I was overwhelmed by what Dhruva Maharaj got. But as the years go by, you start to see deeply into Dhruva's lamentation. You begin to understand, particularly by reading Nectar of Devotion, that the emotional state, the bhava, is the real, that's the real crucial factor. Now with Dhruva returning from the forest, we're focused again on the emotional states of the various personalities involved. We're focusing upon Suniti's non-envious attitude. What was she doing while Dhruva was in the forest? Dhruva was in the forest trying to propitiate the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to get the greatest kingdom, to get revenge. His mother Suniti was at home praying to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, please protect Dhruva. Both were absorbed in transcendence. So Dhruva was a great devotee who had a great mother. Her absorption in praying for Dhruva's safety brought her to a platform in which she could even treat Suruchi with total detachment and non-enviousness. This treatment of Suruchi is highlighted in the next few verses. We all will be in situations in which we feel mistreated, minimized, misunderstood. Even in the society of devotees, this can happen, because after all, our Krishna conscious society is like a hospital, and hospitals have patients of varying degrees of seriousness at varying times. Some follow the doctor's orders completely, some don't. Some follow, then stop following. Some who stop following, start following again. And so, therefore, due to social interaction with different types of patients in the hospital, inevitably, a devotee may feel rubbed the wrong way. As Srila Prabhupada explained, we're not utopians. I had a hard time realizing this as a young devotee. I thought, all these years in the university, I've been looking for social utopia. Now, in the society of devotees, I have found that utopia. But I was thinking utopia in material terms, which is impossible. We are a society of devotees who are trying to become purified. And as we're trying to become purified, we are engaged in serving the mission of the acharyas, particularly the mission of our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada. So, due to varying degrees of purification, contamination at varying times, in our interactions with other devotees, sometimes there's a problem. The Bengali proverb that if you have a bunch of kitchen utensils and pots in a cart, as the cart's moving along the road, naturally the utensils and pots are going to bang together and produce some noise. So similarly, Prabhupada used that example. You put a bunch of devotees together, sometimes there's going to be a little noise, you know. How to deal with that is the sign of maturity. That's what it means not to be a utopian. Don't be a utopian in the material sense that now we are all devotees, everything will be fine in terms of our social interactions. Yes, everything can be fine if the devotee who's perceiving the fineness has an attitude like Suniti, who put Saruchi on the same palanquin as her, along with Saruchi's son. And they were the cause of all the problems. Of course, Maharaj Uttanapad had a role to play in the problems, but he admits, I was just overwhelmed by attachment for my favorite wife. Indeed, later we'll find out that Suniti and Uttama have to pay a bit of a price for their implication in Dhruva's original plight. Uttam will die, killed by the Yakshas, and evidently his mother, Saruchi, will have her demise shortly after that. And the Bhagavatam points out this is kind of a reaction to their implication, Dhruva Maharaj's situation. But as far as Dhruva Maharaj, as far as his mother, there was no rancor or feeling of revenge whatsoever. Now just think, let's not dismiss this so lightly. Every devotee can be in a situation in which you are misunderstood or inconvenienced, and naturally, what do we say naturally? We mean due to material conditioning, a desire for revenge can develop. At least to the extent that, unfortunately, we might be happy if that devotee who has wronged us incurs some discomfort or material setback. These things can lurk in the heart. I think in one of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs, he talks about this mentality that I'm unhappy when I see others happy. This is the material disease, which reaches its peak, that material disease reaches its peak in I live, you die. This is one reason why we take animal slaughter to be so horrendous, because the mentality is, my life is so important, these other creatures are not important. In fact, I get strength, I get even emotional strength from the realization that others are dying for nourishing my life. That's the peak of such mentality. But although we hopefully are free from that peak, we should also understand the residues of that peak that may still lurk in the heart of a devotee. Because naturally, in the course of serving Krishna, you're going to have to deal with devotees who don't see things your way and do things a different way. It's often said that as the years go by in this time, you start to become enlightened. You realize most devotees don't think like you do, and they don't do things the way you do. Now what? Utopia means you speculate that everyone is thinking the way you do and doing things the way you do. As after a couple of years, as a new devotee, you become enlightened. Everyone is different. They're all doing things different. They all think differently. And yet we have to serve Krishna. How's this going to work? So inevitably, there can be some misunderstandings. Sometimes devotees can feel very wronged. Lord Chaitanya has warned, if we want to go on in bhakti, indeed, humility is an absolute necessity. Humility doesn't simply mean walking around with the head down and constantly offering pranams. Humility is tested in a situation in which you feel misunderstood, you feel mistreated, and yet you have to go on devotional service. In the 7th canto, there are quite a few purports in the same chapter in which Srila Prabhupada says practically, I think 3 times, 3 purports. Unless one learns how to be more humble than a blade of grass, the devotee will have a very difficult time going on in devotional service. I say this because we're reading about Suniti's humility, which is being glorified. And Dhruva Maharaj, Mr. Revenge personified, what does he do when he sees both of his mothers? Not just his beloved mother Suniti, but the co-wife Saruchi, the one who spoke the vilest insult. He bows his head at the feet of both mothers, showing, I'm not into this honor, dishonor, envy, fame, infamy. Dhruva is showing the spiritual platform that he's on upon emerging from the forest. He's not the same person. And what was Saruchi's reaction to Dhruva falling at her feet? She immediately picks him up, embraces him with her hands, and with tears of feeling, she blesses him. My dear boy, long may you live. This shows us how a devotee can make advancement to such an extent that he or she can handle the most intricate situations. Someone who is the cause of all your pain, as Saruchi was for Dhruva. He's now falling at her feet. She's blessing him, obviously noting Dhruva's new mentality. These are the glories of bhakti, and just seeing how in this part of the Bhagavatam our focus has shifted from Dhruva's acquisition of material and spiritual opulences to his profound change in character and consciousness. And that is where the real action is. In conclusion, let me remind you of Sudama Brahmana's return trip from Dwarka after seeing the Lord in Dwarka. Remember how Sudama Brahmana regretfully went to Dwarka because his wife was pushing him. We are grihastas, we need at least a little money. We don't have anything, we're living in such a crumbling shack, we practically don't have clothes to cover our bodies. She was giving him her share of the food, and even, which wasn't enough for him, and she was getting practically nothing, so they were both shivering from hunger. So she advised him, don't you remember your youthful friend, your boyfriend Krishna? He's in Dwarka now. Go see him. Surely he'll understand. Surely he'll give you some wealth, because we need something to live on. We're family persons. And Yacharya's pointed out she was correct. It's not that she was in illusion. She was correct in making her presentation, and at the same time, Sudama was correct in his reaction that, why do I want to go see Krishna for material things? This is not where I'm at. So the wife was correct from the Varnashram Dharma point of view. We need something to live on. And Sudama was correct from the pure devotional point of view. So both were coexisting and both are necessary. Finally, how did Sudama resolve the situation? He thought, all right, here's what I'll do. I'll satisfy my wife by going to see Krishna, but actually, I'm not really going to see Krishna to ask for any wealth. I'm just going to see Krishna. My wife has kindly given me the opportunity to go see Krishna. But this way, once again, all these things are happening together, just like Uttanapad's reaction to the messenger with the impossible news that Dhruva had returned, and also his remembrance of the instructions, the predictions of Narada Muni, balancing the material and the spiritual. So Sudama set off for Dwarka, as you know, and we won't go into what happened there. You know how he met Krishna, and Krishna seated him on the bedstead of his chief wife, Rukmini. So anyway, Sudama left Dwarka. Krishna personally walked him to the city gate as a sign of respect. When someone's leaving, you walk them to the door, to the gate. It shows you're honoring your guest. We don't read that there was any talk about remuneration or maintenance or anything like that going on while Sudama was in Dwarka, because there wasn't any talk. So what was Sudama thinking as he's walking home? How wonderful my Lord is. He didn't give me anything. He knew that if he'd given me the slightest wealth, I'd fall down. How wonderful is my Lord. He didn't give me a penny. This is bhakti. He's walking home, back to what he thinks is going to be his shack and his poverty. So happy, with complete trust in Krishna. He knows how to handle me. He knows what's best for me. He knew the slightest bit of opulence would just blow my mind. I would become deviated. How wonderful my Lord is. So once again, here we see the bhava, the attitude of the devotee, as the most important. This is the real wealth. Of course, you know what happened when Sudama approached home. But meanwhile, what was Krishna thinking in Dwarka? Krishna was thinking, this devotee is so wonderful. He's given me that chip rice. that cheap rice, which is so valuable with devotion. Remember, Sudama didn't want to give the presentation that his wife had given him to give to Krishna. And Krishna snatched it from him, started eating until he was checked by Rukmini. Said, just a little bit you've already taken has made him so indebted. Has made you so indebted to him, rather. The acharyas point out that actually Rukmini was thinking, and as a wife, that any more of that cheap rice, Krishna, in your stomach will be affected. So, as Sudama was leaving, Krishna was thinking, what he has given me, I have nothing proper for reciprocation. Even if I give him the wealth of Indra, it won't be enough. I can't repay him for all his devotion. So out of embarrassment, Krishna didn't give him anything while he was there. Krishna was thinking, I can't repay him, so I can't offer him anything while he's here. But when he gets home, he'll see a little surprise. Since I can't give him enough, I better do it after he leaves the palace because I'm embarrassed. I can't repay him enough. So therefore, let him go, and when he gets home, he'll see something. But just see the attitude of Krishna. Just see the attitude of the devotee. This is the real wealth. As Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, love of Krishna is like a pool into which both the Lord and the devotee dive into together. All right, let's stop here and ask. Any questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna is in the minority, right? The Hare Krishna movement is in the minority.
Where?
Worldwide.
If you take into account all of existence, we are the majority by far. The minority group are the conditioned souls.
In times of up, like on planet Earth, how do we go about establishing it worldwide with every time?
How do we go about establishing Krishna consciousness worldwide? Basically, you can go on every continent of the world and you'll find devotees. I remember I was in Russia above the Arctic Circle in a place called Severodvinsk, and I met some Indian devotees from Mumbai. I think they were part of, yes, they were part of the Chalpati congregation. They told me what happened. You see, there's a big Russian naval base there because from this town you had access to the ocean, Arctic Ocean. And so the Soviet Navy, the Russian Navy was building an aircraft carrier there and submarines, and they were employing Indians, engineers. So just imagine these engineers, they're from South India, but pursuing the wealth they're in above the Arctic Circle. It's determination. So they were just miserable. Like, oh, we're so far from Krishna. No devotees were above the Arctic Circle in this remote location. And so this devotee was describing to me. He was walking along the street in this town one day on his day off, and he couldn't believe it. He heard, is that cartels I hear in the background? I can't believe it. And he began to run, spontaneously run towards the sound of what he hoped were cartels, but he couldn't believe it. And then he saw a chanting party of devotees. You can't believe his shock. I'm above the Arctic Circle. I'm in the middle of nowhere. And here's a Harinam party. He literally fell at the feet of the devotees. He was so shocked. Yes, there were devotees in that town. So basically everywhere you go, you'll find devotees of Krishna. We need to improve the quality of the everywhereness of the devotees. That I see as the challenge now. The more the quality increases, the more Krishna's power will become revealed. And that way, the world will be influenced by bhakti. For Krishna's power to be revealed, there has to be the purity of the devotees. Of course, Krishna can do anything, but Prabhupada himself pointed out that he wrote this to Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Krishna can give the whole USA immediately, but first he wants to see that his devotees are becoming pure. So this is the mysticism of bhakti through the bhava, the emotional state, particularly the pure emotional state of the devotee. The power of Krishna becomes revealed. Because Krishna wants to glorify his devotees.
Thank you very much. You mentioned in the lecture that the attitude is the wealth. The attitude is the wealth.
Yes.
Can you tell us how to develop the right attitude, the proper, what is proper attitude and how we can develop it?
How do you develop the right attitude?
But what is the actual right attitude in devotional service and how we can develop that?
What is the right attitude in devotional service and how we can develop it? What we are aspiring for is greed, lobya. That's the only price for bhakti. We want to be greedy for devotional service. To be greedy for devotional service automatically means you'll be tolerant of whatever circumstances are there. It means that you'll treat devotees properly because you're so greedy for service that you have no time for lethargy, fault finding, pride. You're just hungry for devotional service. And that greed for devotional service becomes so inflamed when there is humility. In other words, without humility, the greed can't properly ignite. To have a voracious bhakti attitude means you're hungry for service to devotees, and that's your focus. Okay. You're not focusing on prestige or respect or material happiness or material distress. You're so greedy, and this greed consumes you. Where is service? Of course, to serve devotees, you have to be very clever, because devotees, they don't like to be served. Right? So then, Krishna begins to empower your intelligence with how to serve devotees in a way that you can get away with it. That's a sign of an advanced devotee. Empowered by Krishna, how to serve devotees and get away with it. That is the supreme destination. I thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.